Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do tiger lilies. There was a bit of a discussion with somebody who is now a follower about lilies. She'd done an oriental lily or a stargazer lily and named it as a tiger lily. Tiger lilies are completely different to the oriental lily range, which covers a hell of a lot of different colours and different types, but the way that it's different is the petals are narrower and they tend to curl back a lot more. Not all of them. Some of the newer versions of tiger lilies are a bit more like a normal lily, but they still have got very narrow petals in comparison with your normal oriental lilies. So I'm going to take you down to my board and I'm going to start off with the stamens to start off with. I'm going to leave it up a bit that way, so just so that I don't go off camera. So I'm just going to do one because I'd already started doing my video and I forgot to switch my microphone on, which is a bit silly really. So what you need is, I'm using a 32 gauge wire here for the stamens. You want a thin wire for this sort of job because they're not going to take any weight. And you need to start off, get your fingers near the top and leave probably about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Bend it over into an L shape, then go about 2/3 on and bend it back to make it into a T-bar. Then squeeze it together where you folded it over like that, so you've got a little T-bar there. Then what you need to do, I've already done some here, is to dip it into some glue and then into some Tyler powder. If you make the paste that I put the recipe on in my last video, the Van der Orchids, and it's on with another one, I've put the recipe on there for making your own egg-free flour paste on there, which I tend to use most of the time. So I've dipped that into there, so you can put that to one side to set. Now I've got some here that I've already made earlier, and they've been sat there drying for a few minutes. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to dip them back into the glue and back into the Tyler powder. That gives me a plumper finish on the top there to add my pollen to. So I'm just going to finish off and do the rest of these into the glue, into the Tyler powder, like that. Whoops, bent it. Make sure you don't catch the edge of the glue bottle like I've done there. It doesn't take too long because it does dry fairly quickly, or dry enough to put your pollen on. Just one more to do. Then leave those to set a little bit. Just get rid of that for now, and I can cover my Tyler powder up. I've just put some in a little pot so that I can do things like this. Get that to one side, and then you want a 26 gauge wire, which I'm going to use to make the pistol with. So for that I need some white paste. I've got too much here, but I'm just going to take about half of that off because I don't need that much. With them being small flowers, it doesn't want to be too big. So roll it into a ball, into a sausage. You might want to put a bit of glue on your wire for this, depending on which paste you're using. If you're using, this is quite sticky, so in general this usually stays put, but with some of the paste like the Renshaw's one, you definitely need to put glue on for that because it's not sticky enough and it doesn't stay on. So then put your wire up the centre of that, just a bit past the end, and then start rolling that onto your finger. Now what I'm doing with this, rather than adding the ovary afterwards, I'm leaving a bit at the bottom like that. I don't know whether you can see that, and then just rolling the top part to narrow it because I just want a slight bulbous bit at the bottom there. So I'm trying to roll it so that it comes up off the end of the wire. So what I can do with that then, I can take some of this off. The top of the wires there, so I'm just going to leave a little bit at the top because we need to leave that there to make the anther cap. And then I'm just going to roll it again between my finger and thumb, just there, just above the bottom bit there. So I've left that a little bit, and you can push that up a little bit to make that a bit thicker. And then between your finger and your thumb, just get your paste and just flatten that down to make a little round flat cap, if you like. It's got some little bits sticking out there where I'll just take that off. Just to get that little flat bit there on the top. And then we'll just roll that again underneath there, just to make sure there's a little bit more definition there. So that's what we've got there. And then again with your fingers between your two finger and your thumb, and then get a pair of tweezers. These bent tweezers like this are the best to use, and then just go in and you want 3 ridges on the top like that. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to one side for a minute. Get rid of that paste there, we don't need that. Get rid of my tweezers and glue. Well, I need that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the pollen for these. Now I've got some pollen made here, and I've told, for those that are new, I have mentioned this in all my other videos, so if you go back, I tend to repeat myself a lot with this sort of thing, but you can make your own pollen. You don't need to pay whatever price it is for a pot of pollen, because for coppers you can buy a bag of ground rice or semolina, or if you've got it in, just take some out of that and put it in a little pot and put in whatever powder colour you want your pollen to be in the pot with the ground rice. Just put some of that into the lid there, and you've got your pollen there. So that's all you need to do, and that's all it is. That's how the manufacturers make it. So I'm now going to take the stamens that I've done, that I've dipped twice, and again into the glue and then into the pollen. Make sure you've got that nice and coated. There we are. So there you've got your stamens already. If you get a little bit of a lump on, just push it together like that. Quite easily done. And then set those to one side to dry. So we'll finish off with the rest of them. Don't get it going down your way, you want it just on the top part there. So you see what I mean, you've put your stamen now has got the top on it like it would do if you used your paste. And again, you see, you can't do it as quickly if you're using the paste method, because it's going to take a lot longer to dry before you can get to this stage. So I've done this within probably about 5 or 10 minutes, however long this video has been running. Probably not that long actually, because time seems to pass a lot quicker when you're talking. Just one more to do, then I've got my 6. There we are, that's the stamens done. So I can now pop that back into there. Now I have spilt a little bit on my board, so I'm just going to clean that up. Don't just wipe it, because if you just wipe it, I'll show you what happens. If I get a piece of kitchen roll and wipe it, you end up with streaks like that, and they are difficult to get hold of. Look, it's it's not coming off completely. Some of it's come off. So if that happens, bit of white fat on your hands, rub that into your board, over with your kitchen roll, and that takes all your colour off. Okay? Right, so the next step now is to make the petals. Now I've coloured some white paste here, and the colour that I've used was, hang on, where is it? I don't know whether I've put it away or not. I forgot. You want an orangey colour anyway, and I can't remember what colour I've used. It's one of the sugar flare colours. Let me just find my bag of paste colours and see if I can tell you which one it is, wherever I've put them. Don't know. So this is just a base colour because they are quite deep. If you look at this one I've already dusted here, and you can see that I've started off, you look at the back of them, I've left that plain and then just coloured the front part of the petals with the powder colour. I'm only going to cut out a couple of petals here for this. So start your paste off. We need a little bit more white fat on there because I've just rubbed it all off with the kitchen roll. That's it. Always use white fat rather than using a powder, because if you use either icing sugar or corn flour, it can dry your paste out, so be careful of that. That's why I always do it this way. I know some people use powder method, but I prefer to use this method. And then with my trusty ridge rolling pin, if you haven't got this, then use the grooved boards, and don't forget to turn your paste over so you can see where your groove is before you cut it out. So you want that on the top. So I'm just going to make a nice groove up the centre there, and then get your cutter, whichever cutter you're going to use. There is actually a Tiger petal cutter, or from a lot of manufacturers. I know Tinkertech and Framar do those. Framar, you can buy them online. She didn't used to deal with the public, but she has, if you go on eBay and look for Cake Time cutters, she has all of her cutters on there, and she now does some veiners as well. I don't know who the veiners are by. One of these days I'll give her a ring and find out. So that's that. I'm just going to do a couple of petals. I'm not going to do... No, I do need 6, don't I? Because I'm doing this one right from scratch. So I beg your pardon, everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these onto wires first, and then I'm going to switch off and do the other petals so that I've got them all ready. So I'm putting these onto a 28 gauge wire rather than a 26, because with them being so small you don't need as strong a wire. So I'm just going to get a couple of wires out. Oops. And get another one out. I need to fill my box of wires up because I'm getting short of wires in here. There we are. Sometimes with my big fingers it's a bit difficult getting in there with those small holes. If anybody hasn't got those, by the way, those are made by Orchard Products. Very handy to have. Keep all your wires, because they come with labels on the front. I've had to relabel those because I've had that a long time, but they do come with stick-on labels, so you can then put on each of the pockets, and you've got the double-sided of these. You've got pockets on this side here. If you can see there, there's a divider down the middle, and then pockets on the other side, so you can get every size of wire that you've got into your box there and keep them all together, rather than keeping in the packets and risking getting them all bent. So a very handy thing to have. So if you go online, you should be able to get them, either that or from your local sugar craft shop. So again, get my petal between my finger and my thumb. Twist your wire into the bottom. Now you need to go as far up the petal as you can. I go at least 3/4 of the way up when I'm making these, because we need to be able to curve your petal back and for it to stay in place. So there we are, that's one done. Get the other one, another wire. Make sure it's straight before you start. That's got a little bit bent on the end. Then again, twist it into the bottom. Then feel it go up between your finger and your thumb. And as you got a little way up, then move your paste a little bit further up, so you're controlling it between the tips of your finger and the thumb. You can feel it go through the wire. And if it comes out, you can feel it come out. There we are. So that's that. So I'm going to switch off now. I'm going to do the other 4 and then I'll come back. Right, I've already thinned the edges of some of them. I've just left a couple here. So don't forget to go around the edge with your medium ball tool. A little bit difficult at the bottom because they're thicker because of your ridge there, but that's not really that important, that part. It's the top parts here where you want to take the cut edge off, like that. Right, so once you've done that, then we can turn them over onto the right side, and then over your finger start to bend your petals back. Now they need to curve right back like that. So you can see how far I've curved that back. So do the same with all the others. Just do a little bit at a time and just gradually work over the petal to curve it back as far as you can. If you've gone higher up with the wires, you could curve them even further under if you wanted to, if you've got the time. Keep it nice and rounded like that. As I say, I haven't used any veining on these because it's very difficult to see any veining, but it's the detail that makes them look realistic, which you'll see when I come to colour them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble these while they are still soft, because then there's less chance of any breakage then. That's a little bit. Hang on, bring that back up. Bring that back a bit that way. Just play around with them until you get them just as you want them. Obviously I'm doing these under stress because I'm videoing it, and I don't want everybody getting bored while they're watching me do this. Right, so once you've got those done, the next job is to do your wires. Now the stems on the calyx are quite white, but I've dusted them with a bit of green. So I'm just going to pop that up. I'll put that up here out of the way and bring my kitchen roll over. Now I've got on here some ginkgo. I'm going to find my brush that I've used, wherever it is. It's out somewhere. There it is, that one will do. Might need some more on there. That's the ginkgo. You don't need a right lot for this because there's very little to do, but if you keep it so you've got some colour on your kitchen roll like that, and then just dust over it, you shouldn't need to turn them over. Oh, we can a little bit on that side there. So if you do that with all of the stamens that we've got, just a bit of a waft over. It doesn't matter if you don't get full coverage, because they are, as I say, they are quite white, are the stamens. But sometimes if you leave it white, we don't want it to look like a wire. And if you try covering them with paste, it can look a bit bulky, because it's very difficult to get them as fine as this by covering your wires with paste. Plus it's more economical this way as well, and I'm all for economical. As I say, if you're doing a competition or anything like that, and then that's different, you do put a lot more detail into your flowers, because they are going to be judged more closely. But if you're doing them for a cake for somebody, they don't see them in the same way. So once we've done that, get rid of that brush. Then I can go back to my pistol, but I do need my brush again, and I've just put it away. Where have I put it? Doesn't matter. I'll use a bigger brush for this. I'm just going to give my pistol a waft over with the colour as well. This isn't completely dried yet. You can let it completely dry if you want and put grooves into the bottom, but I found doing this that what I've done is I've sunk the wires into the paste. So I need some light green tape, cut in half. You've seen me do that before, so I'm not going to bother that. Stretch the end. Find out which is your stickiest side. Nip that in. Roll it on, and then push it right up underneath the base like that, so you've got your tape right up to the wire. And then start putting your stamens in. Now they need to go with the head of the stamen just slightly below the top there. And then roll your wire around. You might have to do it manually for the first one, because when you've got a few in, they're a lot easier to roll between your fingers when you've got more than one wire in. Put another one in. I must admit, doing it this way while the paste is still soft, they don't tend to move around quite as much. So you've got your paste holding it there. If you're not comfortable with doing it this way, then do it the other way, let your paste dry. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. Two more to go in. One more. Try and get it in the middle of those two there. That's it. Roll round and then tape down. And then you can go in and with the very tips of your stamens then just pull them out a little bit, so they're like the spokes of an umbrella. Like that. Now the anther cap there, I didn't dust that before, but I'm going to do it now. I want a brush with a bit of red on it. That's got a bit of burgundy on it. I'm not going to even bother getting any colour out for this. I'm just going to give that a waft over. There should be enough colour on my brush just to give it a little bit of colour. There's not enough on that one. I've got another one here somewhere. I think I've got another one there. I've just seen one. That's got some on. No, that's not working. Try that one. That's a bit better. Just to give it a bit of colour, that's all. I pulled my pollen off there. Right, so once we've got that, we can put that to one side now for a minute. And we can get rid of this paper out of the way, and my brush, and that paste I've used for making my petals with. And I can bring down my petals now. So I'm going to put these on before I dust them. What I do is, what I did this with this one is assemble everything together and then let it dry before I colour the petals. Because the petals are curved back, it's a lot easier to dust this one once they're dried and on the flower. So again, I want my light green tape. Start that off underneath the stamens there like that, and then start putting your petals in. Just need to be a little bit careful, so I'm just going to bring that petal up a little bit so I can tape that in. Because they're soft, we can readjust them once we've got them in. So I always start the same off as you do with any other lily type flower, where you putting your petals in and put your first 3 in. Although it doesn't matter with these because they're all the same size. Just lift that one out a little bit more. That's it. Put those in. Just bring your paste down. Just be careful with your fingers when you're doing this. Then put the third one in. Just lift that petal up a little bit. And then we can go in with the next layer of petals. Just lift that one up again so we can get in. Another one in there. Now what I didn't do with these petals was to shape them, but you can do that once you've got them all in, because the paste is still soft. So we can do that once we've got everything in place. Get that in, like that. And then tape down, just very carefully. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the paste up and curve it up a little bit like that. You could do it before you put them on if you want, but I mean they're going to move around a bit, so because they're still soft it's a lot easier to do it this way. Just gives them that little bit more movement so they don't look flat and dead. Like I've said before in previous videos, sometimes even if something is flat in nature, if you do it flat in sugar it doesn't look alive. So sometimes you need to give nature a helping hand and give it a bit of movement. Now if they do flop down a little bit, you can always come back while they're drying and keep adjusting them while they're still malleable, and once it starts setting, it will stay. So that's that stage. Now you can curve your petals back again now and over accentuate the petals curving back. Then if you've just flattened them a little bit, just go around and just readjust them a little bit. And then you can set that to one side to dry now. Now I've already got one that is dry here that I've done. So now we can get on to colouring. Just move that round a little bit. So I'm just going to pop that into my foam up there for a minute while I just get rid of my tape and bring my colour over. Now the colour I'm colouring this with is burnt orange. Now there are some Tiger Lilies that are a yellowy colour in this type, and then you get some that are more like the Oriental lilies that come into the sort of deep burgundies and that sort of colour, but they usually are fairly quite dark. Even the yellow one is fairly dark. So whatever colours you're going to use, if you're going to use if you're going to do the yellow one, I'd use some sunflower. You could even mix a little bit of orange in with that just to make that a little bit darker. So if we get that off there, and then I get my brush for my orange here. There we are. I think I've got enough powder on there, I think, already. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dust, not from the right bottom, I've left it a little bit lighter at the bottom. Get your finger underneath while you're dusting this as well, because these are quite curled. There's always a chance that you could break a petal if you're not careful. So keep some support underneath the petal. Make sure you catch the edges like that. Just need some more colour out, so we'll get some out. You can see how dark that is, the burnt orange. Get your finger underneath and then dust it. You could do this while they're still soft as well. I mean, sometimes you find the colour does come up a lot darker if you want them darker, if you do it while the paste is soft. I mean, a lot of demonstrators like Alan Dunn do them right from beginning to end without letting the paste dry, which is alright for him because he's used to handling it like that, but if you're not, you're better off letting them dry. You will get colour all over your fingers like I'm doing here. The advantage with this paste that I've used here, the egg free, it is more flexible than other flower pastes. Right, so that's that. I'm not going to dust underneath. You could do if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do. Right, so that's the orange on there, so I'm just going to pop that up there for a minute. Get rid of that brush. Now what I need for the next step is a cocktail stick. This is my way of doing it. You can do it with a brush if you're good at doing little tiny dots, but I mean, if you're not good at doing tiny little dots, I find this way is, for me, is better because I'm not very good at doing it with a brush. They tend to end up like blobs, and I don't want them to look like blobs on this. They are very fine. I've just lost me. Oh, there it is. There's my dropper. This has got some isopropyl, and this is just a dropper that you use for giving medicine for children. You can get this from your chemist. Put some drops of isopropyl into my brown, I'm using a mid brown for this. You could use a darker one if you wanted to. It depends on how dark you want your dots to be. Then just stir that in. Then if you get your flour into your paste again, then just start from the bottom there, putting some tiny dots in. You may not be able to see this. If I had a more expensive camera, I probably would get more detail, pick more detail up. But when I started doing this, it was an experiment, doing videos. It could take quite a while, this. Just keep going over them until you get your dots to look the way you want them to do. You don't want to go right down to the bottom here. They only come down to probably about here. So from there, I think I need some more isopropyl in there. I haven't got enough in. That's better. I don't want the dots to be too obvious, because if you try and go too over the top with flowers, they can tend to look a bit messy and artificial. I think I need to put some more powder in there. Right, so that's one done. I'm going to switch off and I'm going to carry on and do the rest of them, then I'll come back. So I'm just finishing off now with the dots on this. And I've got those on there. So what I've done now is I've put my steamer on here and I'm going to steam it. So that should hopefully bring some of the detail up so that you can see it. We're ready in a second. I just hope I don't steam the my lens up so you can't see what's going on, but it will clear very quickly for that. Here we are. So just get your steamer into it like that. That sets your colour. I don't always do this in all the videos, sometimes I do it after I've finished, but that sets your colour. Switch that off. So there we are. That's my Tiger Lily. I hope you've enjoyed the video and you come back and see me in the next ones. Don't forget, if you've got any comments about anything or any questions you want to ask, leave them in the comment section below. If you've got any suggestions for anything you'd like to see me do, again, leave it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Hope to see more of you subscribing. The numbers are climbing. So, yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and you come back and see me very soon. So take care, stay safe and see you soon.